I didn't say a word when the HOA president screamed about trespassing. I just slid the federal code across the conference table and watched their lawyer's face drain of color. He didn't even try to argue. He just leaned back in his chair, eyes flicking between the statute highlighted in yellow and the stack of violation notices the HOA had piled against me. It was the kind of silence that made every neighbor in that room understand the balance had shifted. They weren't in charge anymore. I hadn't come to this neighborhood to fight battles. Truth be told, I moved here because I thought it was where life might finally slow down. After 26 years working federal service and bouncing around the country, I bought a modest 2-story with a wraparound porch in a community tucked against the pines. The streets were clean, the houses had character instead of cookie-cutter facades, and the small lake nearby reminded me of summers with my grandfather. When we'd spend entire afternoons fishing and saying almost nothing, I wanted that quiet. Again, to tend a small vegetable garden, to fix up my dad's old Jeep in the garage, to sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and listen to the world hum softly around me. The American flag I hung on my front porch wasn't a statement. It was just a habit. I'd flown one everywhere I lived since I was a young man. To me, it wasn't political or confrontational, it was personal. It was a memory of folded flags handed to families, of places I'd worked where that cloth was the only thing that felt like home, and of men and women who deserved better than to be forgotten. I didn't think twice about it until the first letter came. It was printed on stiff paper, HOA logo at the top, and taped right to my door like some public notice of shame. Violation. Unauthorized exterior display. According to them, my flag violated the uniform appearance of the community. I laughed out loud when I read it. It sounded too absurd to be real. I thought it had to be a mistake. Surely they didn't mean an American flag. Maybe they thought I was stringing up neon lights or hanging a banner. But when I called the number listed, the woman on the board, the president herself, said flatly, "Flags are not permitted unless pre-approved, and yours is not approved." I tried diplomacy first. I emailed her, politely with citations. I pointed out the Freedom to Display the American Flag Act of 2005, a federal law explicitly protecting homeowners from exactly this kind of nonsense. I quoted the section, linked, the Library of Congress source. I offered to meet and discuss. No response. The next week, a new letter arrived. $200 fine. By the third week, another violation was added, accusing me of obstructing community harmony by refusing to remove unauthorized decor. That one I framed. Neighbors started avoiding me. Some would wave awkwardly, but most just turned away. I wasn't hostile, but the board's narrative traveled fast. I was the difficult homeowner, the one refusing rules everyone else agreed to. My sister visited one weekend, and when she pulled into my driveway, she found a notice taped to her windshield warning non-residents about extended parking. My nephew, who was just 12, asked why the neighborhood police didn't like us. That's when I stopped sending emails and started reading property law. Every night after work, I dug deeper. I went through the HOA's bylaws line by line. I combed state statutes. I printed the federal flag law and highlighted every clause, even requested the community's founding documents from the county clerk. And what I found wasn't just overreach, it was incompetence. Their bylaws hadn't been updated to comply with federal law. They were threatening fines under provisions that were legally void. The more I read, the clearer it became they weren't just bullies, they were exposed bullies, operating on ignorance. I documented everything, every notice, every fine, every email unanswered. I photographed the flag every morning to prove it was never altered or used improperly. I even recorded one of their board members telling me over the phone, "Federal law doesn't apply here. This is private property." That recording, I knew, was dynamite, but I didn't show my hand. Not yet. The weeks dragged on, and they escalated. They threatened liens. They said they would seek removal if I did not comply. The partner worried. We'd get dragged into a long court battle, I told her quietly. We won't. They've already lost. They just don't know it yet. When the next board meeting came, I attended. They didn't want me there. I could see it in their stiff posture, the forced smiles. The president opened the floor with her usual condescending tone, rattling off community updates before she turned to violations. My name was first. She announced to the room that I was defying rules designed for harmony, and that the board had no choice but to escalate penalties. She tried to move on. That's when I stood calm and deliberate and set my folder on the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I slid the freedom to display the American Flag Act of 2005 across the table, already highlighted. I placed a copy of their own bylaws beside it, with the conflicting section circled in red. And finally, the recording transcript where their member dismissed federal law outright. You've issued fines under provisions that have been federally preempted since 2005, I said evenly. You've threatened me with unlawful liens, and you've misled homeowners by asserting authority you do not possess. The room went silent. The lawyer, sitting stiffly in the corner, leaned forward and scanned the highlighted section. His face changed instantly. He didn't need to read the rest. He knew. Federal law wasn't optional. The president sputtered about community cohesion, but her lawyer cut her off. Cannot enforce these provisions, he said flatly, his voice quiet but definitive. It was over in less than a minute. The look on her face, red, tight, shrinking, was worth every late night I spent combing archives. For months, she had strutted with authority, threatening, posturing, smirking, and in one quiet exchange of paper, the entire illusion collapsed. She tried to adjourn the meeting quickly after that, but the neighbors had already seen it. They'd seen her cornered and me walk out untouched. The aftermath was swift. Fines were rescinded, the notices withdrawn. At the next meeting, too, board members resigned for personal reasons. The president held on longer, but within 6 months she was voted out. The HOA's lawyer recommended a full bylaw revision, which cost them thousands. My flag still hangs where it always did, untouched. Now when I drive through the neighborhood, some neighbors wave again. Others turn away, embarrassed. Either way, it's quiet. My garden grows. The Jeep is almost restored. The porch feels like mine again. I never set out to fight, but if you push a man long enough, sometimes he'll remember that silence can be louder than shouting. And my flag? It doesn't move any differently in the wind. But I'll admit these days it looks a little brighter.